Hello, everyone, and welcome to another DMI Team Talk. This is Sean Kenny here from membership at Digital Marketing Institute, and today we're looking at what exactly are NFTs. So, what we want to look at for you is what they are, and maybe give you a bit of a definition. Look at some recent trends and stats around their growth, particularly in the last 12 months. Who is engaging with them, for example. Then we want to look at how brands are engaging with them, so specifically how to create one, but then also why to create one and how they might be useful to a brand. And then we want to look and tie all of this together with some recent examples of what big brands out there have been doing with NFTs. And we'll, of course, maybe come to some of the concerns and limitations of NFTs themselves. So let's begin with a definition. What is an NFT? Well, an NFT simply stands for non-fungible token. And the key here to actually understanding what that means is understanding the word fungible. So fungible just basically means you cannot interchange it mutually with anyone else. There is no set value for the token. The value of it fluctuates, whether that's a piece of music, a piece of artwork, something that you can use in the metaverse. We're going to look at all these kinds of examples of what the tokens can be, but the value is subjective in many ways. So you can't change it like for like with something else, like say a dollar bill. We all know the value of it, and we all know what we can get for it and what it can be traded off against. So fungible in that sense means there's no set value, and that's basically the definition of the acronym. But we will come to look at exactly what the technology is, because that's the key here. And the underlying technology of NFTs is blockchain. Okay, now blockchain you may hear interchangeably a lot with things like Bitcoin or crypto coins in general, or cryptocurrency in general. But blockchains is simply a a decentralized way of storing things. Okay, so no one person has the ability to alter the record of the blockchain. When something is in a blockchain, it automatically updates every file stored on every computer across the entire system. So in other words, the one thing you can't do with cryptocurrency or NFTs, as we'll look at, is alter the ledger that everyone has that keeps record of these things. Now that might seem complicated, but we'll bear it out here with some examples. So why are NFTs in existence? Well, one big reason is security. Okay, and that goes back to blockchain technology that I was just mentioning there. So NFTs were created to help with property purchases originally, not things we've come to know them for now in recent headlines, such as art trading or things that we can use in gaming. They were actually used as a really secure way to store contracts, and that could be a contract that was used for, say, a property transaction or a legal document or something of that nature. And it was invented to simply reduce the time and effort and resources that go into all that kind of documentation, to simplify the process. So that's why NFTs were created. And they're specifically for the kind of crypto blockchain space. Authenticity is another big reason they exist. So with an NFT, the information and all the key details around the product or the actual item that is within the NFT is stored in one place. And again, because of blockchain technology, it can't be altered by anyone. So it's a permanent record, and it's accessible to anyone in the blockchain kind of network. So as it says here on the slide, the blockchain address of each owner since the creation, when it was minted, how much it was sold for, all of these things are kept track of, and you can look back at the history of what's happened with the NFT. So that leads us into our next point. What's one of the benefits of NFTs? They provide a solid, concrete, reliable, trustworthy history of ownership. So unlike paper documentation or emails that have been sent back and forth or signed contracts, there's a publicly accessible record which documents the ownership and the history of ownership for each NFT, and that can't be altered or erased. So that's really key. That's why they're in existence. And as it says here, it gives provenance and automation and something that's verifiable to the particular artwork or collectible or whatever it might be. And we're going to look at lots of examples now of NFTs, but bear in mind this is the reason for the main reasons for their existence. To give A quote here that might help explain also where or why an NFT is useful is just from the co-founder here of Galaxy, which is a blockchain related NFT related company. And basically what he says is, to quote, to compare it to traditional art collecting, there are endless copies of the Mona Lisa in circulation, but there is only one original. NFT technology helps assign the ownership of the original piece. And what we'll see as we look at some examples of NFTs is people who buy them or want to trade in them, they're interested in the originality or authenticity of the original artwork or the product or whatever it might be. In the same way that the original Mona Lisa is priceless and any copies are essentially worthless. So that's what we should bear in mind when we look at the reason for their existence. Now, on the slide here is an image of an NFT that sold recently. In fact, this month. It's the second highest grossing NFT, and it's a digital artwork. And probably in recent headlines, we've seen artwork being used as the primary example of NFTs, particularly big sales. But what I want to do here is just kind of demonstrate what is recorded in NFT and blockchain information when something like this has been part of a transaction. So this is the artwork simply. The artist is Beeple, and Beeple is now synonymous with specifically NFT artwork. But we can see here on the left, these are the details that were recorded in that blockchain ledger for this NFT. So it gives us who the original artist was. There's a token ID, which is unique to this piece. There's a wallet address, as you need a crypto wallet essentially to receive funds or just to actually be involved in an NFT transaction. There's a smart contact address, so it's not a home address, but it's an address specific to the person who owns this wallet and this artwork. And then we have some details around the artwork itself. When it was minted, which is when it came to be, essentially, when it was released, and when it's sold. And that's part of that history, being able to track back sales of a particular NFT. The figure that your eye might be drawn to is the price this was sold for. So this was sold at Christie's auction house, and it was sold for almost $70 million. And that was just earlier about this time last year. So this is kind of information that's being recorded, and that's a kind of big example of an NFT which captured a huge price on the market. But we're going to look at examples. NFTs are not, they're not all artworks, and they're certainly not all bringing home almost $70 million. So let's look at some stats, give us some context before we move on to examples. So NFTs have actually existed since 2012, the technology itself. And it progressed on from existing as something that could record, let's say, the details of a contract to actually the details of an artwork or a collectible. So going from 2012, it took 5 years for the first launch of a collectible NFT, and that was actually for what's known as CryptoPunks, which are hard to give context in a short space of time, but it's essentially a game, as is the other example here in 2017, CryptoKitties. They're like collectible cards online, so that was kind of their inception as collectibles. In 2020, the NFT market was valued at $100 million, but we see that if we're looking at context of how much growth there's been, going up until the end of last year, that's essentially in 1 year, it increased by 220x, or all the way up to 22 billion. So that is the growth in a 12-month period starting from 2020. Another figure, what's the highest selling NFT? Well, that was also an artist called Pack, and he sold an artwork called Merge, and that actually generated almost $92 million in sales, and that was as recent as last December. And surveys now are throwing out some interesting statistics around the general public's interest in NFTs, whether they be artworks or otherwise. A survey taken March last year actually found that in the US, 20% of US adults in general are somewhat interested in acquiring, investing in, or trading NFTs. And 9% of US adults are very interested. When we look at the kind of categories or cohorts of people who are really engaging with NFTs, we see esports fans are the most receptive to NFTs. at 58% of them interested in NFTs. And then if we look at kind of subsections of that audience or kind of related audiences, gamers, 37% of people who game online are interested in NFTs, and there's a number of reasons for that. The metaverse is increasingly becoming one. And 34% of general sports fans are related in that. So we're going to unpack that a little bit with our examples. And then as a demographic, men are 3 times more likely to collect NFTs than women. And for the record, men are also a lot more likely to collect anything at all, whether that be cards, posters, vintage items, and so on. So that does relate to that. We actually see at the moment the biggest market is collectibles, and that's what we have here on this slide. So these are the current uses for NFTs. The ones in the top left here kind of go back to the reason I said they were created in the first place, to record bonds, real estate transactions, or any other kind of financial products. More recently, decentralized finance type of records, such as insurance or tokenized liquidity, NFTs are being used for. But the bulk of activity, certainly amongst consumers, now falls into all these categories on the right. Art, gaming assets, memes, moments such as Top Shots. We're actually going to look at that example specifically. Name services, music, redeemables, things you can win or you can be awarded by brands, and historic relics. Okay, so this is all kind of under the category of collectibles. So let's kind of look very quickly at how a brand, you there sitting in a digital marketing team somewhere or responsible for decisions in a company, can actually create an NFT. It's incredibly simple. A lot of platforms have brought the accessibility forward to you to do it quite quickly and quite easily without a lot of paperwork. So there are multiple platforms that simplify the process for brands. The two most popular, if you want to check them out for some context, are OpenSea and Rarible. Now, the steps in terms of creating an NFT, you can kind of focus on these 3 key steps. One is to choose a platform, such as the above, but when you're choosing a platform, you need to consider how your own brand and the consumers themselves, how friendly the platform is for them, which type of blockchain technology does it use? Does that go hand in hand with the kind of crypto wallet you have, which is the next step? And what are the fees and charges around using the platform? They're kind of the main things to know, but it's quite simple outside of that. You do need to create a wallet, as I referred to earlier. You need a digital wallet which stores blockchain assets such as cryptocurrency, but obviously also NFTs. The biggest options out there at the moment are Coinbase wallets or MetaMask. And your choice should be compatible with the platform that you choose initially. And then the kind of final stage is actually minting. It's what's known as minting your NFT. So that's sort of releasing it out into the world. This process is now incredibly simple, again using third-party platforms. And it's the process of uploading a new record to the blockchain. And minting is as simple as uploading a file, essentially. So although there is cost within actually doing this, the third-party platform, you can see here from the slide, it's also called the gas fee, but that's the price of using the blockchain resources. But outside of that, it's pretty straightforward to do. Now, why would brands want to do this? Well, we're going to look at some examples briefly, and hopefully it ties everything together and gives you some context as to what NFTs are. But NFTs at the moment are inextricably linked to digital collectibles. So this is the biggest use of NFTs at the moment. And many brands' first step into the kind of NFT space has been to launch their own collectibles. And examples include Coca-Cola and McDonald's. With Coca-Cola, for example, they've simply stepped into the NFT space doing things they've always done in the past. We've all seen Coca-Cola merchandise in the past, whether it be apparel or it might be physical things that you can collect, fridge magnets and so on. They've simply created ranges of those in a digital space using NFTs. And we're going to look at a McDonald's example. So these big brands, they're simply stepping into a digital space with things they already had. So those types of brands or companies, they've had a natural transition into kind of creating NFTs. But companies in the media business or who produce content for us, the viewers, consumers at home, they also have a natural kind of bridge into using NFTs and to create a new class of media assets. So whereas they might have TV programs or live aspects or images or recordings that they release, they can now simply transition these into NFTs. And we've seen this really successfully with sports bodies such as the NBA, the UFC, even the PGA, the Golf Association. They're involved now too, and lots more will follow suit. But they've already capitalized. And what we see with their fans is their general fan base is they're the type of consumers who already enjoy collectibles, whether that be buying NBA shirts or merchandise, or whether it be purchasing subscriptions to look at content. So all of this kind of brand loyalty has transitioned into a desire or a want for NFTs. Brands such as Gucci, who sell actual physical products, have actually been able to transition into creating digital versions of those same products or new products with an eye to basically allowing people to use them in a digital space such as the metaverse. Now, we had a team talk previously on the metaverse. You might watch that back for more context on exactly what it is. But essentially, it's an online digital space where people can interact with each other, they can play games, and they can do a whole host of other things in a digital environment. But authenticity, people wanting unique items within those games, and so on, companies like Gucci have stepped in and made them available and selling them, and it adds a revenue stream to what they do overall as a company, but it also enhances the amount of consumer loyalty that they have. It it also allows them to step into another space and get awareness in that space too. And NFTs also provide a number of digital marketing opportunities, and we're going to kind of look at that through our examples before we finish here. But digital marketing opportunities can arise, such as partnerships with other companies to launch NFTs. That can elevate brand image if it's a good partnership that makes sense. Creating content and product awareness is another key reason for brands to get involved, so they can launch a product in the digital space or raise more awareness of it. And then also to increase that sense of product loyalty or brand loyalty that fans have, new fans or old fans. So there's a lot of reasons to jump into that space for companies, but let's look at some examples. So here's McDonald's with its launch of 10 NFTs, or as they call them, MC-NFTs. That's to put a bit of branding on the acronym on their part. But the reason they did this, well, they allowed people to have a chance of buying NFTs by integrating it with kind of their social media activity. So actually, to be able or to qualify for buying one of their NFTs, you had to retweet one of their tweets. So automatically, this is tying in an NFT with engagement around social media. And we see here in numbers, 21,000 people approximately had used the hashtag within just 2 hours of this launching. And then by the end of 3 weeks, it was 100,000 people. So a massive amount of engagement, but a good example of how releasing NFTs have also helped the company meet other digital marketing objectives, particularly social ones. So this is kind of two things working together. In the next example, we're referring back to a point that was made on the previous slide. So this is an actual example of the NBA. Now, the NBA, obviously, is a sports organization. There are live games all the time, and there's a lot of coverage around the NBA. So they're very much one of those that are in the content business already. But what they did recently was they partnered with a Canadian-based company called Dapper Labs. Now, you remember I mentioned CryptoKitties. Well, Dapper Labs were the makers of that game, so they were one of the first people in the NFT space anyway. But they've partnered with the NBA to make collectible digital assets. Now, essentially, those assets have been highlight reels. So your favorite basketball player having a particularly interesting moment in a game, which is then converted into an NFT that you can own. It's called the NBA's Top Shot product, and again, it's essentially blockchain-based trading cards. So trading cards, and with sports, have been around forever. But what they've done is they've made a very natural kind of segue into doing this in a digital space through NFTs. And since they've done this, they've generated almost 250 million in gross sales. One thing to note, though, and it goes back to what NFTs are, is with these, you can actually buy a pack of these highlight reel moments for as little as $9. But both the NBA and Dapper Labs, they make most of their earnings of transactions that happen after they've first been bought, so peer-to-peer transactions. And that's one of the key things about NFTs. If you're an artist and you have a particular artwork, you sell it, you get that transaction fee, and then you also get a percentage, and you'll see estimates of 10 to 15%, but a percentage of the future transactions to happen with that artwork. So it's really key for artists and content creators. Here's the Gucci example. Now, Gucci actually have numerous examples. They've, as we're going to show here, they've created things for the metaverse. So they're stepping into that space and linking both NFTs to, branding in the metaverse. But they've also released collectibles of content, such as ads that they've run or ad campaigns, and made the video a collectible item. But in this particular case, what Gucci have been doing is they've essentially been at the forefront of kind of metaverse innovation. Now the metaverse is kind of yet to take off or take grip, and people have yet to really start to engage with it in any way. But Gucci are already out there creating assets for people who are gaming, such as this image you see on the left. This is simply an avatar that can be used within games on the metaverse. It was one of the first brands to sell virtual items anyway, and this would have been to Roblox and Zebeto. Now they're different to, say, Facebook's upcoming metaverse. So it's already in that space, and they're using it to promote new products to the metaverse. Gucci aligns itself with the virtual world and inserts itself by doing this, essentially by creating avatars and products you can use in the metaverse. And they're also important for staying relevant in the long term. They're keeping their brand relevant and reaching new markets in Gen Zers, Gen Xers, and a kind of newer demographic. So it's not just a way of generating new revenue, for example. This example here, our last example, this is a good example of a partnership. So Mattel's Barbie, that's the Barbie dolls they're all familiar with, partnered with a French fashion house called Balmain to create NFTs of Barbie and Ken dolls. Bidders who were successful in outbidding each other received a physical version of the doll and then obviously the NFT itself. But also you could customize and personalize the doll of the avatar, and then the avatar in turn could be used in the metaverse. So there's a lot going on here. But the dolls sold out immediately, and the campaign was noticeable for the personalization aspect. That's personalizing an NFT and a product. So it's bringing a lot of things together. It's a very creative use, and it's a good example of a partnership. But NFTs provide the opportunity for brands to do this and create something completely different and unique for customers. So with all of that said, and hopefully it's provided some context, we should also give some kind of disclaimers of a sort almost, because there's a few misconceptions about NFTs. So NFTs are illiquid and volatile. So their price fluctuates. The returns associated with NFTs, as it says here, they're based entirely on price appreciation. The price goes up and it goes down. There is no income that comes to you as part of owning an NFT. You don't receive, if you have bought an NFT, unlike a creator, but if you own an NFT, you don't receive any passive income or any income from future sales. So the only income would be from a future sale. And again, as we go back, this is illiquid and volatile. You can't just sell it whenever you want for whatever price. NFTs can also be used in fraudulent ways, and we're seeing more and more of this in recent months. So while we kind of outlined how someone can mint an NFT, it's incredibly easy, but it's unfortunately easy to commit fraud in this way. So a number of artists and people who create content have recently reported seeing their work for sale when they are not the ones who created the NFT. And this is a kind of problem that needs to be considered perhaps more and policed more somehow. And then there's also environmental concerns around NFTs. So as with all blockchain technology, there's an incredible amount of computing power that goes on in the background, which uses a lot of energy. And if we are now stepping into a space where digital assets are not just code and simple numerical transactions, but they're large properties which are very complicated to replicate and they take up a lot of space, this is only going to increase and it could potentially be of harm to the environment. But all of that said, I hope that's enlightened you to in some way as to what NFTs are, and we hope to see you for another DMI Team Talk soon. Take care.